In the original Mobile Suit Gundam, members of the OG White Base crew quickly became the heart and soul of the series. A group of strangers, mostly teenagers, who were thrusted into a conflict they had no part in creating, and yet, despite this, endure through countless tragedies and hardships to become the shining symbol of hope for the future of the Universal Century. Background characters who we've grown attached to finally take center stage, and for many of them, their new type abilities, which had slowly grown over the course of the series, finally take shape. This thematic element is entirely flipped on its head in Gquex, a Gundam series set in an alternate Universal Century timeline where Zeon wins the one-year war. The ragtag crew of White Base remains totally absent from this story, and what we have in their place is the bridge crew of the Sodan, a renamed and recolored Pegasus-class Federation vessel that was captured by Zeon during the attack on Site 7 during the one-year war. When we flash forward to Gquex's narrative present, UC-0085, we see that the Sodan is still in active service, manned by a group of young Zeon officers and commanded by none other than Challia Bull. As Gquex's story unfolds, we spend a lot of time aboard the Sodan and start to become familiar with many of its crewmates. Aside from Challia himself, the other character who appears most often and plays a significant role aboard the vessel is Comoli Harcourt, a young Zeon naval officer straight out of the academy, eager to make a name for herself and serving as a personal aide and confidant to Challia Bull. Wherever Challia goes and whatever he does, Comoli is often right there too, right by his side, aboard the Sodan, in confidential meetings, in his own quarters, and accompanies him during secret operations as well. Initially, her role in the show would seem rather minor, acting merely as an aide to Challia, questioning his decisions. But as the series progresses and the story unravels, Comoli transforms into something much more significant and impactful, a young new type officer with a front row seat to the events of the entire series, from the theft of the Gquex all the way to the reality-shattering events of the finale. And in a way, she's the connection point between legacy characters and new ones, with the possibility to play an even bigger part in the series in the future. So who is Comoli Harcourt anyway? Her official bio over on the Gundam info site is, well, rather sparse, so there's not a lot to go off of as far as her backstory is concerned, but we do know a few important things. Comoli is described as being 23 years old in Gquex's present UC-0085, placing her birth date in UC-0062. She would have been 17 during the one-year war and likely enlisted in Zeon's officer academy as a cadet very shortly thereafter. Her uniform is different than most of the others on the Sodan, matching more closely to the uniforms of Challia and Xavier. The small emblems on her uniform are consistent with previously established Zeon markings and would suggest that she's an officer, an ensign, recently graduated from an elite Zeon officer academy. We are first formally introduced to Comoli near the beginning of Gquex's first episode, where she is seen standing on the bridge with Challia aboard the Sodan. Right off the bat, just in this first episode, we can kind of pick up on her dynamic. She's a rule follower, someone chiefly concerned with proper military etiquette and protocol. She's shocked when Challia authorizes the use of the Gquex's Omega Psychomu system when they haven't gotten permission from Zeon authorities.
If that happens, we'll all face Vice Admiral Makuve's military tribunal.
They're the worst.
In fact, in the beginning episodes of Gquex, she remains pretty skeptical about new types in general, and even chalks up the return of the Red Gundam as nothing more than yet another Char impersonator.
There's been lots of imposters posing as Captain Char out there. I'm sure that this one is a fake too.
Though initially a skeptic about new types, as the series progresses, this starts to change. In episode 4, The Witch's War, the Sodan is stationed just outside the Izuma colony, with a front row seat to the clan battle unfolding in front of them. Comoli is the first one aboard the Sodan to notice a sound, the La-La sound, the sound signaling the channeling of new type energy and the onset of a Zechnova.
What is that sound? I feel like I'm hearing something.
Isn't this what everyone calls the La-La sound?
She is one of only 3 on board the Sodan who hear it, the other 2 being Challia and Xavier, and this is the first scene where we see Comoli's new type abilities begin to manifest. The more time she spends with Challia and the other new types, and the more she bears witness to these new type events like Zechnova and later the U-Magnetho incident, the more her new type abilities begin to show. There's a lot of small moments like this that happen with Comoli that really go a long way to build up her character, both as a new type, but also how her character serves to expand the events of the story. She's often depicted as the sensible, by-the-book soldier foiled against Challia Bull's more casual and unorthodox command style. Her incredulity at a lot of Challia's decisions in the show I think are supposed to be somewhat of an audience insert for us. Like, there were many times where Challia would say or do something a bit perplexing, and I would just find myself being like, bro, what are you doing? What are you up to? Only for Comoli to come in and express something similar, acting as a voice of reason. Later on, in episode 6, Comoli accompanies Challia during a meeting with Lieutenant Seamus, where Challia requests the transfer of his Kikuroga back into his possession. And again here, Comoli gets kind of irritated as Challia is casually just chatting with Lieutenant Seamus about Californian wine, all while they're supposed to be talking about the authorizing of the transfer of his Kikuroga. A highly sensitive and highly illegal piece of new type technology at this point, by the way. In addition to these traits, she's also shown to be quite a caring person. Like when Xavier is captured by Side 6 authorities, she's the only one to question his well-being and seek his return, while all the others are more focused on recovering the Gquex first. Additionally, as his own personal aide, Challia and Comoli seem to be quite close, and she shows great care and personal concern for him when, for example, he leaves the Sodan to pilot his Kikuroga in battle against the Psycho Gundam. But after this plot to assassinate Challia has been thwarted, the Sodan is dismissed from their duties on Side 6 and is reassigned to travel to the Earth to protect some unknown Zeon military operation. On their way to Earth, Comoli is present inside Challia's quarters as he interrogates Machu for any information about the Red Gundam and its mysterious pilot. Challia starts revealing very classified information to Machu, which, true to her character, Comoli gets very frustrated at. In fact, Challia has to sort of put Comoli in charge of Machu while she's on board, and Comoli has to give Machu her own clothes, which she can't stand, but she helps anyway. Then later, Machu just straight up breaks out of her cell in the Sodan and steals the Gquex. Everyone on the bridge is scrambling to lock down the hangar and stop her, and then Challia's just casually like, let her go guys, it's okay. Again, Comoli can't for the life of her figure out what Challia's plan is here. I kind of feel bad for her, honestly. Like, Challia just puts her in these impossible situations without knowing his true intentions. It's gotta be maddening for her. Like, let my girl live here. But I think another big moment for her character comes at the end of episode 9, as Zeon finally finds and recovers the elusive Rose of Sharon, the Elmeth itself, a highly advanced new type mobile armor piloted originally by Lala Soon, who remains there, frozen in time, a relic from the other side. Comoli is present at the recovery of the Rose of Sharon, standing right there along with Challia, and she observes that the rose looks distorted, almost wrong, and not from this world.
Why does it look so distorted?
In this universe, perhaps it's in an unstable state.
Looks a bit more like a tulip than a rose. Is it a spaceship?
I can tell you it's not something any of us created. It's a specialized mobile armor, the development of which was suspended, and it was never completed. And yet here it is, right in front of our eyes.
It's around this point in the series where it becomes increasingly difficult for Comoli to reconcile Challia's decisions, and where she begins, just as we do as the audience, to truly understand what's at stake here. What initially began as an investigation of the reappearance of Char's Red Gundam has become a full-blown power struggle for the fate of Zeon and Space Noids itself, and Comoli is right there with us following along as things start to ramp up. After the recovery of the Elmeth, in episode 10, Machu returns to Zeon custody without much drama, and while she's in the hangar, Comoli scolds Machu for not wearing the Zeon military uniform she was given, instead opting to go back to her regular pilot outfit. She asks Challia to discipline Machu for this, but Challia rebukes and reminds her that Machu isn't technically military, so there's nothing really wrong with this.
And yet you're entrusting our latest mobile suit to that kid?
Oh, girl. Chill out, Comoli. The Beard Man doesn't care, so why should you? He doesn't.
The Beard Man? Who's that?
I really like this little scene. It's just these little moments like this that go a long way to not only ground the story of Gquex more, but also makes each of the characters feel like, well, real people. Again, with over 40 episodes in First Gundam, there was a lot of downtime on White Base, and these less action-packed moments is what give us space and time to grow with the characters. And with Gquex being so packed full of different ideas and plot points, and feeling so criminally short at just 12 episodes, we have to really savor small scenes like this. Because, as few in numbers as they are, they do go a long way to give us these small, similar moments between characters. But back to Comoli, in this same episode we do see that Challia does continue to keep some things from her, like giving Machu his gun. She reminds her to make sure Comoli doesn't find out.
But we'd be in trouble if Ensign Comoli found out. So do be careful.
My theory is, in the same way that Challia was able to understand immediately the thoughts of Machu without her speaking, it's possible he was also able to do the same for Comoli this whole time. And hearing her doubts and suspicions about his motives, he might have silently decided to not clue her in on his plot to take out the zombies, at least not yet. Comoli isn't left in the dark for too much longer though, as the ceremony for the activation of the U-Magnetho device erupts into chaos. Comoli quite literally has a front row seat to all of the events unfolding, and there is a lot going on. Everything starts to come apart during the last and final Zechnova event. But before it's even fully begun, Comoli notices it, she feels it, and recognizes it as something different. This is a true Zechnova. As Comoli states herself, only 3 Zechnovas have occurred before. The one at Solomon, the one at Side 6, and now the one Lady Challia triggered at Abawaku. But in these past cases, Zechnovas have involved elements from their universe leaking into the other side. However, now, elements from the other side have begun leaking into this reality.
What in the world is happening?
And then, when the original RX-78-2 appears out of U-Magnetho, Comoli is the first one to detect it, and understands almost intuitively what it is and what it represents, the White Devil itself.
There's a Zechnova reaction in the mobile suit itself, just like in the Rose of Sharon.
What's this new one then?
It's a White Devil.
As this last Zechnova continues to unfold, the commander of the Sodon asks Comoli what's going on, because she can see and feel things the others can't. It's at this point we can definitely confirm that Comoli is a new type, and it seems that her knowledge and experience of being around Zechnova before have only continued to heighten her senses. Once Challia has fully began to openly attack Cassilia's forces, his allegiance is now under question by his former crewmates aboard the Sodon. It's then when Lieutenant Seamus reveals to them that this was Challia's plan all along, to eliminate Challia in order to usher in an age where new types can truly be free. Exasperated, Comoli replies,
Lieutenant Seamus, a true new type, would never do that.
This line reveals likely what Comoli and many other new type officers in Zeon's ranks were made to believe, that new type ideology had only been aligned with Challia's vision, failing to see the bigger picture. It's only after the conclusion of the story, after this unshakable proof right before her very eyes, that whatever allegiance she may have initially had to the Zeon military and its governing authority like Lady Challia has finally been shattered. The veil the Zabis had thrown over the eyes of all new types had finally been lifted, and we can imagine Comoli has come to connect those dots herself and finally understand Challia's noble intentions all along, even if she hadn't accepted them before. In the aftermath of the U-Magnetho incident, in Gquex's final scenes, we see her one last time with Challia and Xavier as they watch the coronation of Lady Artesia from afar, all part of Challia's plan. If you notice in this shot, Challia is wearing a mask of some kind, similar to Char's, likely because he's become a fugitive at the end of the war after it was revealed he planned to assassinate the Zabi leadership. So the fact that Comoli is accompanying Challia at the end of the series, we can imagine that Comoli might work with him moving forward as something of an outlaw, perhaps further investigating the crimes of the Zabis, or working to help reshape or rebuild Zeon after the crazy events of the show. Before I wrap up this video, there's another extra element of Comoli's character that I felt was important to share, and that's the possible real-life origins of her name. Gundam as a franchise has always been known to have some really interesting character names, and over time fans have had a lot of fun dissecting their names to possibly offer up some clues and insights as to the character's origins and real-world analogs. So I thought it would be interesting to see if anything turned up for Comoli. I looked up the last name Harcourt to see if the writers had created her with any real-life inspiration in mind, and I found a list of historical figures with the last name Harcourt, being mainly British politicians, diplomats, and naval officers. This is quite the list, but after poking around, I found a particular historical figure from this list that might have a connection to Comoli, and that's this guy, Octavius Vernon Harcourt, a British naval officer. Octavius served during the Napoleonic Wars aboard a variety of vessels, but was eventually promoted to captain in 1827 and was handpicked by the Duke of Clarence himself to serve as his own personal aide-de-camp aboard his royal yacht. While a lot of this stuff doesn't totally match up one-to-one, the broad strokes of both of their lives ring true. A young naval officer named Harcourt who was eventually promoted as a personal confidential aide to an important member of the military. Whether or not the writers and storyboard artists of Gquex actually used Octavius Harcourt as an inspiration for Comoli's character is of course unknown at present, but I did think that this real-life historical connection was important and interesting to mention, especially when dealing with UC. Tomino is notorious in the original Gundam series for pulling pretty directly from history, and I think it's cool to think that the writers of Gqueus honored that legacy and tradition with their own characters. If Gqueus gets any sort of follow-up, which I really hope it does at some point, it would be really interesting to see Comoli return and what kind of role she could play in a post-Zabi Zeon society. Given that her new type abilities become very obvious by the show's finale, and the fact that she was first-hand witness to the big moments in the series, and that leaves her character's future wide open. This is leading me to speculate even further about the future of the series. I did really like Comoli as the show went on, and as her new type abilities became more apparent, I started to hope that maybe we'd see her in a mobile suit at some point. Of course, that never happened, but I still do wonder, what kind of mobile suit could she pilot down the line? Would she maybe pilot a Gyan like Xavier, maybe a Gelgoog, or maybe something more advanced like Challia's Kikuroga, considering she's kind of his second in command? I don't know, something to think about. Let me know down in the comments if you have any ideas or theories on what kind of mobile suit she could pilot. All in all, as sort of messy and all over the place Gqueus was at times trying to juggle all of its different characters and story beats, in the midst of all that, I think Comoli is a good example of a side Gundam character done right. Her appearances are brief but meaningful, clearly present throughout the whole runtime, but not so ham-fisted and overdone that it detracts from the main story. And in hindsight, she really is that character that binds all of Gqueus's different threads together. She's close to Challia Bull in the unfolding Zeon political plot points, but she also connects with our main protagonist, Machu, and goes on to witness all of the climactic events of the series right up until Sayla's coronation. Comoli is a crucial character to Gqueus, and to me, she represents a lot of possibilities for what the series could become in the future. Well, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I have a couple of other Gqueus videos up on the channel, be sure to check those out as well if you haven't. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of Comoli Harcourt and what she could be up to in this series should we get a continuation of some kind. Also let me know if there's any other characters from Gundam or Gqueus in particular you'd like to see me make a video on next. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.